Herzlich willkommen erstmal von mir. Ich bin Lukas von dem Referat für internationale Studierende. Die Veranstaltung selber ist organisiert von Referat für internationale Studierende, Rotem und Rosen, einer Mitstreiterin von uns aus der christlichen Bewegung, sag mal so, oder Friedensbewegung aus der christlichen Warte her und unter anderem kritische Studierende in unterschiedlichen Fachbereichen. Sowohl kritische Sozialökonomen, kritische Sozialwissenschaften, kritische Fachschaftsaktiven, kritische Studierende auch in der Medizin und unterschiedliche studentische Gruppen, die unter anderem auch in den Fachbereichsratswahlen und der Fakultätsratswahlen kandidieren. Und diese Veranstaltung ist Teil sozusagen von Bildungsprogramm in Zeiten, wo ich glaube, dass wir können nicht kritischer genug werden, sagen wir mal so. Und ich will die Einleitung zu dieser Veranstaltung mit einem Zitat von Bertolt Brecht anfangen, die er während des Zweiten Weltkriegs geschrieben hat. General, der Mensch ist sehr brauchbar. Er kann fliegen und er kann töten. Aber er hat einen Fehler, er kann denken. Die geschätzten Militärausgaben in Nahost stiegen um 9% auf 200 Milliarden Euro im Jahr 2023. Dies war die höchste jährliche Wachstumsrate in der Region in den letzten 10 Jahren. Die Beendigung militärisches Elend, beziehungsweise dieses militärisches Elend, erfordert das Freilassen von produktiven Kräften für zivile Zwecke. Was heißt das? Das heißt, der Mensch darf keinen Krieg führen. Aber was stattdessen? Die beste mögliche menschliche Aktivität in unseren Zeiten sehe ich als die Engagement für dauerhafte Waffenstillstand. Die Combatants for Peace sind ein Beispiel von menschlicher Vernunft und kollektiv angewendet für Frieden, beziehungsweise genau für diesen zivilen Zwecken, beziehungsweise für Waffenstillstand. Daraus können und sollten wir lernen und die Frage zu beantworten, wie können wir bestmöglich hier in den selben Richtung kämpfen. Ich hoffe, dass alle, die gekommen sind, soweit darauf eingestellt sind, zu diskutieren, als man aus der Veranstaltung kritischer dabei rauskommt und nicht mit denselben Mentalität. Ich glaube, das ist genau die wirksamste Anteil von diesen Diskussionsveranstaltungen, wenn wir voneinander lernen, und zwar auch, um hier besser zu kämpfen. Und ich hoffe, dass wir eine gute Diskussion danach haben.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone will understand my English. First, I want to thank the organizers for organizing this event. It's really give us big support and relief that there are people really caring about what's going on the other side of the sea. And thank you for coming really to listen to us and what we have to say. Because as a smart person said, if you feel your pain, you are alive. But if you feel other people's pain, you are a human. And in these days, we are searching for humanity because we really are missing it. So we are here as a message of justice. We are here to tell you what we have been living through and how our life look like. We're going to tell you our personal stories in order to put you a little bit in our situation and how we live. We don't consider ourselves peace activists only. We both are fighting for freedom, for both of our freedoms, because no one is free as long as we are all, or we all are. So we are here not to convince anyone what is right and what is wrong, and which side you should stand. We are here to explain to you our life, and we are asking you to stand on the side of justice and humanity, because standing for one side is just one-sided, and it's adding to our separation, more separation. While we are telling our personal stories, please allow yourselves to listen a little bit. I know everyone came with his mindset or her mindset about us. We already judged. A lot of people already have a picture for us, whether we are traitors or peacemakers or fighters or all these things. Just we are inviting you to put your mindsets aside for a second and to open your hearts and listen to what we have to say, because we are not in a competition of who's more victim than the other. Yeah, so that's how we're going to start with our personal story and then questions. So I will pass the mic to Rotem. Thank you again.
Hey everyone. So I will start with my personal story. This story is my personal life, but it represents a lot of people who live on my side, I would say. And I don't know why it happened to me that I'm here with Osama, but something happened on the way that made me look on the whole situation from a new perspective. And I want you to give it to you, to tell you about this transformation, how it happened. First, to give you hope that transformation is possible, that this reality, this aggressions, violence that we see on the screens every day, there is an alternative to it, and we represent this alternative, and we were changed by each other, by getting to know each other. And yeah, I still believe that change is possible. So I was born in a small village, not far from Tel Aviv. And I was born and raised as a Zionist in this little village. We were only Jews in this village. In my school, we were only Jews. And I've heard about the Palestinians only from the media, from the teachers, but I've never actually get to know one on a personal level. So I couldn't really relate this identity to a real human being. Because again, as a child, as a teenager, there were only Jews around me. But when I was 10 years old, it was the time of the Second Intifada, and I started to hear about bus explosions and terror attacks. And as a child, I was very scared. I remember when I used to take the bus from place to place, if someone spoke Arabic next to me, first I didn't understand the word because they don't teach us Arabic in the schools, and it's all very segregated, so I couldn't really learn the language. But as a child, I was scared that someone might bomb himself, and sometimes I chose to leave the bus before the destination. And it also was very traumatizing, like to think that someone is willing to kill himself in order to kill me. This whole idea of bus explosions, I couldn't really believe. How is it possible? And again, the narrative that I've heard around me was a very one-sided one, that they hate us, they are violent, they are terrorists, and they don't want us here. And once they will have the opportunity, they will kick us from here. So we have to be strong and protect ourselves. In Israel, we have this National Memorial Day. Maybe some of you know about it. So this day is the national day to come together and to remember the Israeli Jews who sacrificed their lives since the beginning of the conflict. And we hold ceremonies in the schools and in the villages and basically everywhere. And we invite the soldiers to participate in these ceremonies. And as a child, I remember the soldiers used to come to my school with uniform and weapons. And I witnessed how much the teachers appreciate these soldiers. And for me as a child, it was the first time I started to think or to internalize the idea that one day I will become a soldier like these soldiers, because around me, everyone used to be a soldier at some point of their lives. I've never heard about anyone who chose to refuse. And for me, I remember the army, it was like the university. It was like the next stage in life. Like after you finish high school, you go to the army. There are no questions about it. And there was no discussion about it, even in school or in my family, in my village. If should you go, there is an alternative maybe, because everyone used to go. So I've never knew anyone who chose to refuse, actually. Never. I've never met one until I was recruited to the army. At the age of 17, we traveled to Poland with the schools to see the death camps and to learn about the Holocaust. And again, this experience was very intense for me, and I remember coming back to the land with the conclusion that the only solution to the Jewish question is a Jewish state. This is the only way we will be safe. We have to protect ourselves, and we shouldn't trust anyone, because if we will trust the others, they might do the same like the Nazis have done to us. This was when I was 17 years old, and they choose this year specifically when we are 17, because they want high percentage of people to go with closed eye to the army and not to ask questions. So they take you to the death camps when you are 17, because the next year you are supposed to be recruited, and this is the easiest way to convince the Israeli teenagers that there is no alternative to the army. And at the age of 18, I was recruited. Again, it didn't cross my mind even to ask questions or to refuse, because I've never met someone who chose to refuse. My parents served in the army, all my bigger family, and for me it was just a question of which unit I'm going to serve in. And another thing that I've learned from my society is that if you put the biggest effort and go to the most appreciated units, you will be rewarded later in life. For instance, I learned medicine after I finished the army service. It will be very difficult for someone to be accepted to medical school without serving in the Israeli army, because they hold this system of interviews, and you have to pass these interviews before being accepted to medical school. And the first question that they will ask you is probably, where did you serve in the army? And if you will tell them, I didn't serve, I refused, then it's not a good answer, okay? Because again, the society is very militarized, and they value the people by seeing what did they do during the service. And I chose to put a lot of energy and effort to go to the best units, because again, I knew that it will help me later in life. And I was accepted to this very good unit, and I was very proud of myself, because the reactions of my family, of my society, of everyone around me was super supportive. They, like by seeing their reactions, I realized how much the thing that I do is appreciated by my society, and I felt important, I felt loved. And it felt good. Actually, I remember it, it felt good. It felt like I'm doing the most important thing I can do in my life. And 2 years later, I was 20 years old, and they took my team to a Palestinian village in the West Bank, next to Bethlehem, in the middle of the night. Now, until this day, when I was 20 years old, I've never been to the West Bank. I was born in 1948, inside the Green Line, and my father always used to tell me that On the other side of the wall in the West Bank, there is occupation, and there are settlers, and it's super dangerous for us Jewish Israelis. And they never took me to the West Bank. So first time I go to the West Bank as a full armed soldier in the middle of the night to this Palestinian village, and we crossed the village by foot. When we reached the center of the village, the commander came to me and to another friend, Nevo, and he asked us to take the sound grenades and to throw them into one of the yards of the houses. There was no one in the street, it was silence, middle of the night, and we were trained for the previous 2 years to just follow orders and not to ask questions. That is the whole point of being a soldier. You do what you are told to do, the best you can without asking questions, as long as you are not being asked to do something that is not acceptable at all. But as long as it's not this red flag, you should do it without asking questions. And I was asked to throw the grenade, and I just did what I was told to do. I took the grenade, I threw it, big boom. And then again, silence. We went back to the bus, and the bus took us back to the base. And suddenly on the bus, Nevo came and told me, Rotem, you know, the other guy, Rotem, you know, I think we shouldn't do such things. There was no immediate danger. There was no reason to do so. And I remember myself like surprised, wow, actually, how come I didn't think about it myself? I was so concentrated about doing what I was told the best way, so it didn't even cross my mind that I'm doing something that is not right. And the commander heard us talking about it, and he came to us on the bus and he told us, guys, you are soldiers, you do what you are told to do, and this is the end of the conversation, you don't talk about it anymore. And because we were good soldiers, we didn't speak about it anymore. And I was lucky, it was between the years of 2009 and 2011, there was no wars on Gaza, it was relatively quiet, so I didn't fight, I didn't shoot anyone, I wasn't traumatized during my service. And I was released a year later after 3 years of mandatory service, and I chose to leave the land for 1 year to travel, because we Israelis, we have great passports compared to the Palestinians. We can travel kind of freely. And I felt like I want to deprogram myself from this mindset of a soldier who used to think just how to follow the order. And I felt like I need to be out of the land to do this process. And I came back a year later to start medical school, and before starting medical school, I met a friend who told me that he is going to participate in a dialogue seminar in Germany with a group of Palestinians from the West Bank. And I was very surprised at the beginning, like, from the West Bank? Can I meet Palestinians from the West Bank? Because all my life, my society, my community told me, you shouldn't cross the wall. It's dangerous there. They don't want us here. They will attack you if they just could. And suddenly my friend is suggesting that we travel together to meet them in Germany. And I had many questions in my head, things that didn't make sense, especially around the topic of violence, because I was always told that they are the violent ones. But actually, when I was 20 years old as a soldier, I was the violent one. And I still remember this experience from the village. And I traveled to Germany 11 years ago, and I met a group of 20 Palestinians from the West Bank. And this experience changed my life. First, because they mentioned things that I've never heard about. They told me that they live in refugee camps in the West Bank. And I didn't know that there are refugee camps in the West Bank. No one said it in school, not in newspapers. And then they said a word that I didn't know, Nakba. Nakba, it means catastrophe in Arabic, and the Palestinians, they use it to describe what happened to them in 1948 when the Jewish state was established. And they told me that 500 villages were destroyed completely, and 700,000 refugees were expelled, many of them to the West Bank, to refugee camps in the West Bank. These are the people I met are the grandchildren of those who were expelled, and many others to Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and later on all over the world. And I was very confused at the beginning because it didn't make sense. How come I'm at the age of 23 years old, I live on this land, just 1 hour from these people, like I can take my car, cross the checkpoint, because I'm Israeli Jew, I can move freely on the land, and go to their villages. On the entrance to the villages, there is a big red sign that warns me not to enter because the army cannot guarantee my safety. This way they scares us and make sure that Israelis will not interact with Palestinians. And well, and I can go to their places, to their villages, but again, it was out of my consciousness that this option is even possible. And how come my society didn't tell me these things, like Nakba, refugee camps, 48. For us, the Israeli Jews, 48, it means the celebration day, the Independent Day. We go to celebrate it. We do parties, barbecue. And suddenly these people are telling me, when you celebrate your independence, we mourn our catastrophe. And we see the parties that you hold. And we see the fireworks. And we see everything. We live just next to you. And you are celebrating our catastrophe. And it was very painful to realize it. To realize that first I wasn't aware, and second, to go back to the land, to try to speak to my people, and to realize that the majority of them, the closest people in my life, my support system, my family, my friends, are not even willing to talk about it. They had excuses, they didn't want to go into these topics, they were challenged, they were intimidated, and it was very painful. I felt very lonely in these days, and I was looking for new people who I can talk to about this, about what I've learned in Germany. And I started to go to peace demonstrations and to meet activists. And some of them were Palestinians from the West Bank. And at some point I moved to a Palestinian village in the West Bank to live with Palestinian friends. And this journey to the other side of the wall, this time not as a soldier, but as a citizen without a weapon. I don't need the army to protect me because I'm going to live with Palestinians in their homes. Again, changed my life. First, because I've learned the language. And suddenly when I heard Arabic on the bus, I wasn't scared because I could understand they are not planning to attack me. They just going to eat something. And second, because the segregation is so intense on the land and both societies live separated from each other, suddenly to be for months in a Palestinian space and to normalize it. Because my nervous system, as an Israeli, we are programmed to be scared from this. This is the whole narrative. So it takes time to heal this program, to feel safe in these places. And especially after meeting more and more people and seeing that they don't want to attack me, they just want liberation, they just want to feel free, they just want to have equality, I could feel much more safe and home, actually. And since then, I'm trying to challenge the narrative of segregation, of terrorism, of they just want to kick us to the sea, and to show people that we need first to get to know the other side, because as long as we live separated from each other, we can be fed by propaganda of fear and of separation, and to believe that the only way to live on this land is by force, and to believe that the army is protecting me. But actually, at the end of the day, it does the exactly opposite, the army. It doesn't protect the Israeli Jews, and the last war in Gaza, or the genocide, or call it however you want to call it, it's not really important for me. The most important thing is that violence cannot solve this conflict. It just creates more hate and more people who lose their loved ones and who don't have any future, and they will choose to join the resistance because they don't have anything to lose. Okay, so we are here to tell you that we need your help to convince all the people that violence and weapons cannot solve conflicts. It just creates more hate and more separation. Thank you.
Yeah. From the same land but different story. My name is Osama. According to me, I am Palestinian. According to the Germans, I'm stateless because they don't recognize me as a human being yet. So my name is Osama. I was born in Jerusalem for a family who most of them were refugees from 48. When I was a child, I started to hear the stories from my grandmother about her village called Lifta, and about the olive festival, and about the spring, and about the olive trees, and her father's big house. And I was always dreaming about this view, and she always tell me that these houses were taken from us by the Jews, the Yahud, because they told them you have to leave for 2 or 3 days until we finish this war, and then you will come back. So they closed their homes and they took the keys with them, and they never went back. So they moved to my grandfather's house in Silwan, in East Jerusalem. And in 1967, the whole family again ran away to Jordan, and no one was allowed to come back, because after they went in, Israel closed the borders. My grandfather was the only crazy one about Palestine, so he decided to sneak back to Jerusalem with his 12 kids, and he made it, and that's why we still have family in Jerusalem. When I was 10 years old, my father moved to work outside Jerusalem for a while, and there is law in East Jerusalem works on Palestinians only. It's actually, this law is only for Palestinians. If any Palestinian lived outside the borders of Jerusalem municipality more than 3 years, Israel can cancel his or her residency. And that's part of the transfer. So the Palestinians in East Jerusalem, they don't have building permits. They can't make construction for their houses. They can't grow. And if they decide to move outside Jerusalem, it's the easiest way to cancel their residency, so they can't live in Jerusalem anymore. So that's what happened. We moved to Jericho, which is 25 minutes away from Jerusalem, not really far. And for me, it was actually nicer because Jericho is flat and it has a lot of fields. And I didn't understand what's going on. And that was the end of the 80s, almost the beginning of the first Intifada. When I start to go to school, I start to see soldiers in front of the school. They always watch from the building over there, but once they were in front of the school, they stopped me and asked me questions in weird language that I don't know. I was terrified. I didn't know what to say to them. But after a long discussion without words, they left me alone. And I went back home telling my mom about the story and about the soldiers. And she said again, these are al-Yahud, the Jews. And that's one of the things that we have to understand, Palestinians, to make difference between Judaism and occupation. Because in a higher level, we should understand that Judaism has nothing to do with occupation. And being against occupation has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. So the first image for the Jewish people in my head was full armed soldiers. And that's how I met them for most of my life. That's the only thing I knew about Israelis or about the Jewish people. Soldiers scaring my sisters, my teachers, my father. After a while, some students start to throw stones at the soldiers, and the soldiers every day target the school by tear gas. So as 11 years old, 12 years old child, I used to run between the fields carrying onion in my hand because it's against the tear gas. It could help. And hiding back in home, taking off the uniform of the school because it could be dangerous. They could arrest me for that. After a few months, the military commander decided to close all the schools because I live under military rules. So the soldiers can't decide anything to me. They can decide to close my city, to open my city. So they closed my school. As a student, I liked the idea not to go to school. But that wasn't the end of the situation. During the nights, demonstrations used to happen in the neighborhood. Youth from the neighborhood collect themselves and they put stones on the junction and they light tires and shout, Allahu Akbar, Free Palestine, all these slogans. And 10 minutes, 20 minutes after, you start to hear the bullets and to smell the tear gas. So my father's order was to close the door and to turn off the lights and not to move from our bed. Because turning on the light means soldiers could enter to your house and take everyone over 16 years old out to question or to clean the place of the demonstration. Usually we don't answer them once they break into our house. That was the first time they entered into our house and they took my father with a lot of violence. And for me, for the first time, I felt like this child grew up and decided to be a man or a defender. But I didn't know how to defend them. I don't have army like Rotem, and I don't have special units to go to, and I don't have air forces, and I don't have country even. So as a child, the first thing I have done is to buy spray color with my friends and to jump after midnight because our parents won't agree. They will never agree. They don't send us to do these things. So after midnight, we jump off the roof to the other side of the street, and for the first time, I wrote in red color, Free Palestine. Yeah. And to be honest with you, by then I did not know what is Palestine or where is Palestine or what is the meaning of fighting against occupation or Palestine. I was just a child fighting against this full-armed soldier who's making his life full of fears. And I did not care if this soldier prayed to the God of the Muslims or the God of the Jews or the God of the Christians. I cared that he's not seeing me and my family and my people as human beings. And that's what I was fighting against. Seeing this free Palestine outside make me feel proud of myself. Like I did something as a revenge, because the soldiers go crazy when they see it. They start to search. They wanted anyone to want to bring color, to delete it, to raise it. And every day, like a mice and a cat, I used to jump and write a few free Palestines and come back again, and they delete it after. And then we wanted to do something more dangerous. So we were thinking, what is the dangerous thing to do? And we decided to build a Palestinian flag, which was one of the most dangerous things you could do by then. It was forbidden. I never seen it, only on the TV. And I wanted to see this flag reality. Again, not because I am a nation fighter, but because someone is trying to ignore and delete my identity. And I felt if I don't fight for it, no one else will do. So we collect some shirts from our houses. Actually, we steal some shirts from our houses and cut it. And the colors wasn't exactly like the red was a little bit pink. But it was, looked like a flag, and we had big negotiations about if we should put the black on the top or on the bottom, because we don't really know. After we built all this big flag, we climbed one of the big trees and we put it on the top because we were tiny kids, and it was like liberation feeling, that like to see the flag over the neighborhood, even though it was upside down, but it was giving me good feeling to see it over there. And when they took it down after like 1 month, I think around 20 soldiers came during the night to our house asking about the big terrorist who have participated in putting the flag there, and it was me. I was 14 years old, and they took me with handcuffs and blindfold to unknown. And the unknown means that if you are guilty, first, the unknown means you are going to military court. What is military court? As a Palestinian, I don't go to the same court like Rotem, because we are not equal, because I am not human enough to go to justice court. So I go to military court. What is the meaning of military court? The judge is an army commander. And if you want to understand more about this, there is a movie called The Rules of the Law. It's about Israel. So the judge is an army commander, and the first minute I stand in front of this army commander, he doesn't see me as a human being who's coming there. He sees me as an enemy because he's a fighter. And if there is guilt, if I have guilt according to his book, to the military rules, he put me in jail according to this rule. But if there is no rule or there is no law to put me in jail, there is another law which is waiting for Palestinians all the time. It's called administrative detention. What is the meaning of administrative detention? That any army commander can take any Palestinian, man or woman, from their house, put them in jail from 1 day up to 3 years without trial, without court. And this is against the international law. And this law was used against the Zionists by the British government. And they used to demonstrate against it. So this law, keeping people in jail, I was charged 6 months, according to what I understood, but I stayed 9 months because no one is counting. And when I went in, I remember I left behind me that school is smart, basketball, quiet child. And I became this violent, tough child because that was the only way to protect myself from everyone who I don't know. And I didn't know any of them. Yeah, and in jail I learned everything bad about Israel. I didn't know what happened to us during the Nakba before the catastrophe. I didn't know how many people were killed. I didn't know how many massacres were committed. All this information I learned from Palestinian prisoners inside jail, and I went out with the idea of fighting more, fighting again. And I did. I started to throw stones, I started to learn how to make Molotov cocktails, and I was arrested again. But it was the beginning of Oslo Agreement where Palestinians and Israelis were started talking, the peace talks, and we were released after a few months because of Oslo. I was lucky. I was released, and I decided to join the Palestinian police. Because when I went out, I saw the Palestinian flags everywhere. And I was questioning myself why I have to risk my life in order to raise a flag while during peace talks, there is flags everywhere. So I want to support the peace talks and the peace negotiations. I joined the Palestinian police after 3 years of serving in the Palestinian police and witnessing the settlements are growing and the settlers are taking over and we are not moving forward from there, and every year we're losing rights, and since we signed for peace, our rights and our lands are stolen piece by piece. I left the Palestinian police and I decided to go back to fight, but it was quiet time. There were no fights between 1997 and 2000, 2001. 2001, one of my friends was killed in front of my eyes. His name is Amir. We were doing search in internet cafe, and I almost get killed, but I was arrested for a few days, but I didn't do anything. And then they released me in the middle of the night somewhere where I couldn't understand, but I found out. And since then I decided, no matter if I fight or not, for them I'm a target. For them, all of us are equal. No matter if you are Hamas in Gaza or you are innocent in Gaza or you live in West Bank. We all are seen the same way. So I joined the fight again until 2007. Then another peace talks happened between the Israelis and the Palestinians and the Americans to stop the second intifada. For me, I refused, to be honest, because I lost most of my friends and I promised them to take revenge. And I couldn't accept the Palestinian Authority talks again. We were forced and jailed, and in the end, we accepted it. Yeah, and I went back to study a little bit of education. And 2010, one of my friends who was a fighter, who still has 3 bullets in his body, was coming back from Bethlehem when I was looking for a ride. It was snowing, and he said to me, I can take you a ride, but I have a meeting before with a dinner. And I said, amazing, if I have a warm dinner and meeting with peace activists. He told me, we are meeting peace activists. And I was really interested of meeting peace activists because I never meet them. And my first intention was the ride. Second intention was the hot meal. Third intention was practicing my English. It has nothing to do with peace. Yeah. So I went to this peace meeting, and when I first step inside the room, I saw someone wearing yarmulke, like kippah, in his head. And I stood back like, Ahmad, this is not our room, you know. And he said, it is our room. And I said, man, there are some Jewish people here, Israeli Jews. And he said, yeah, some of the Jewish people, Israelis, believe in peace. I said, what do you mean? They killed their own prime minister because he signed peace agreement. How are they going to believe in peace between me and you? And I went out very angry, smoking, waiting for Ahmad because like, Talit Takumi and Everest is the end of the world of Beit Jala. And I was really mad and I wanted to go back just and to curse him. But I started to hear Israelis speaking from inside, talking about Nakba, talking about the crimes their grandfather have committed, talking about the occupation and the crimes of the settlers and the crimes of the army. And I was surprised. How come there is such Israelis? How come there is a Jewish person who cares about me or believe my narrative? So I was curious and I went back with confusion about how come they are exist. And I wanted to know more. So I went again and again to meet Israelis and I understood that our biggest enemy on that land, the big separation system. There is a system that doesn't give us the opportunity to meet as human beings. We have, like for example, I live in Jericho. Jericho is 12,000 years old, one of the oldest cities in the world. The junction of Jericho, which have been called the junction of Jericho for 10,000 years, they built a new settlement and they changed the name of the junction to the name of the settlement. So the Israelis don't even imagine in their heads or the back in their heads Jericho exists on this way when they pass. And the settler who's living next to me, 5 minutes walking, not driving, away from my house, has nationality, country, army, full rights, freedom of movement, enough water, and defend all the rights, full rights. And he just came back from America. My Hebrew, not my Arabic, my Hebrew is better than his. But because he's Jewish, suddenly he has rights on my land, more than me and my kids in the future. And this is not right. And for this, we need to stand and fight. So I created a group called Visit Palestine. This group was about education, to educate the Israeli people a little bit about our situation. That, you know, we Palestinians woke up in the morning going to schools and universities. We are the most educated people in the Middle East, if you don't know, even though our schools and our universities are attacked every day. We have the best olive oil and the best farms, even though the settlers are burning it every other day. We love life as long as it's possible. We are not here to kill anyone. We don't wake up every day in the morning to sharpen our knives and looking for Jews to stab them. Yeah, but no one will be safe as long as I'm not free. No one will be safe as long as my child don't have water to drink and he's not free to move from place to place. And the most important thing why I created this, to bring Israelis and Palestinians together. Because that's the biggest enemy of the system. Not to meet as human beings. To meet as a soldier, as someone who's a civilian who's passing checkpoint, he has the power, but not beyond this. And I started to make peace talks or just talks, just narratives, to talk about each other narratives in order to understand where we came from. Because peace is a place where two narratives can meet and accept each other and not keep fighting over who's more victim than the other. And from my experience, what changed me is to meeting people, and what inspired me is Mahmoud Darwish. Before he was expelled in the 70s from Deir al-Asad, his village, he was in love, even before, he was in love with a Jewish woman. Her name is Tamar Ben Eri. And when he was in Lebanon, she wrote him a letter asking when we are going to meet. He said, after a year and the war. She asked, when will the war end? He said, the time we meet. Thank you.
Thank you very much to sharing your stories or your ambition to fight for peace, to build peace. So we're gonna open this discussion to the audience. Wir können jetzt die Diskussion zu euch öffnen. Ihr habt auch die Möglichkeit, auf Deutsch zu sprechen, und Dietrich wird dann für die beiden übersetzen. Die Antworten werden auf Englisch gegeben. Wir hoffen auf eine Diskussion mit all den weltanschaulichen Spezifiken, die hier im Raum versammelt sind, sodass wir klüger werden, engagierter werden für den Waffenstillstand sofort und auch den gerechten Frieden. Deswegen schaut, dass ihr pointiert seid und wir alle auch gut in die Diskussion und zu Wort kommen. Ihr könnt einfach eure Hand heben und wir nehmen euch dann auf die Redeliste auf. You can raise your hand if you want to talk.
Was macht besonders Osamas Rede, ist mir aufgefallen, deine Glaube an Frieden? Was macht dich so sicher, dass es Frieden in Palästina und zwischen Palästina und Israel geben wird? Also das glaube ich auch. Aber in manchen Zeiten bin ich mir auch unsicher, wie man das alles schaffen kann. So einen langen Konflikt und so viele Ungerechtigkeiten, was da passiert. Aber es macht mich auch froh, dass ich euch beiden zusammen an einem Tisch sehe. Das macht auf jeden Fall Hoffnung, dass man gemeinsam, also Juden und Palästinenser gemeinsam über ihre Zukunft entscheiden und zusammen diskutieren. Und das wollte ich mal wissen. Was macht dich so sicher?
Thank you.
Erstmal vielen lieben Dank, dass ihr beiden da seid. Ich fühle mich geehrt, hier zu sitzen, um euch zu sehen, denn auf der Arbeit habe ich über euch erfahren. Ein junges Mädchen hat berichtet, dass ihr von Schule zu Schule geht und toll erzählt, und ich habe ein tolles Feedback letzte Woche von euch gehört. Erstmal vielen lieben Dank dafür. Ich würde gerne wissen, ich selber war letztes Jahr in Palästina und habe es mit meinen eigenen Augen gesehen, was die Israelis den Palästinensern antun. Man hatte mir am Flughafen gesagt, ob ich irgendwelche Dokumente mit ins Ausland nehme. Mein Reiseführer sagte mir, man wird euch in die Enge ein bisschen treiben, aber ihr werdet trotzdem rausfliegen. Man wird euch sagen, hast du Kontakt zu Palästinensern aufgenommen? Hast du mit irgendjemandem gesprochen?
Ein bisschen langsam, ich muss ja nicht übersetzen.
Oh.
Ich bin kein Simultandolmetscher und die Akustik ist leider auch nicht so super von hier hinten.
Tut
Okay.
mir leid, ja.
Beim Flughafen weitermachen.
Am Flughafen, genau. Am Flughafen hatte man mir die Frage gestellt, ob ich irgendwelche Dokumente mit ins Ausland nehme, ob ich Kontakt zu Palästinensern aufgenommen habe, ob ich Spenden gegeben habe, ob ich Freundschaften abgeschlossen habe. Diese Fragestellung ist wohl standardmäßig für alle Menschen, die nach Palästina reisen, durch Tel Aviv. Ich persönlich würde gerne wissen, weil ich ja halt das gesehen habe, live mit meinen eigenen Augen, diese Anschläge. Und vor 2 Tagen, er hat gerade über Eriha gesprochen, auf Arabisch, auf Türkisch Eriho. Die älteste Stadt der Welt, eine atemberaubende Stadt, Warum werden weiterhin dann diese Häuser zerstört, gezielt? Oder in Hebron, warum ist die Hälfte der Moschee eine Synagoge? Oder in Jerusalem, warum provoziert man weiterhin, indem man in die Al-Aqsa-Moschee eintritt, obwohl es verboten ist? Mich würde die Frage stellen, was der Herr dazu empfindet oder sagt, wenn die Regierung doch anders handelt, obwohl die Juden selber sind pro-Palästinenser. Ich war nämlich auf der israelischen Seite, die in Jerusalem ist. Die Kinder laufen mit Maschinengewehren darum, um zu provozieren.
Kannst du die Frage ein bisschen fokussieren und nochmal die Sache
Ja,
mit den Haus...
mich interessiert eigentlich seine Sicht. Nicht
eine Frage stellen und kein Statement. Ist
ja,
Ihr Interesse.
ja, meine Frage ist an ihn. Er ist erwacht, er sieht Sachen. Warum die Kinder von klein auf an gezielt so erzogen werden, dass die antipalästinensisch handeln sehen? Ja.
Ja, auch von mir erstmal vielen Dank. Ich kann es versuchen. I try it in English. Thank you very much for your words and your message. I totally agree with what you stated out, at least in the end, Osama. The quote that you gave, when will the war end, the time that we meet. I find it very interesting that both of you are telling stories about the segregation and how it is essential for the mentality of conflict going on and war being perpetuated. And I think, on the other hand, both of you are describing experiences, meeting people from the other side, showing you that the narratives that are dominant in each society about the other side are not true. But I find it interesting what made you especially getting a new perspective on the other side, because obviously it's not the same for everyone hearing these stories. I think there are a lot people knowing something about the other side, but still they don't take these conclusions that you both took. And I think it's very relevant to get to know what especially made you go this step in order to be able to convince others to do it as well. And therefore you need to focus on maybe the differences as well.
Thank you. I will answer the first question. What makes you sure that will be peace in Israel and Palestine? First of all, peace is something don't start from outside. It starts from inside. So if I don't live in peace, peace lives in me. And that's what gives me hope all the time to continue this. Peace is not only political with Israelis. Yeah, when you practice peace, it's peace with yourself, it's peace with the animals, with the trees, with the nature, with your family, with your kids, with your mother, with bigger than the political peace. And what makes me sure that I am not living the dream of sharing the land, I'm practicing it with my Israeli friends. We are living the dream in a small level. We feel equal, we speak equal, we fight for each other equal. And that makes me feel, if between France and Europe and Germany, there is peace today, it could be peace. There's no conflicts remain forever. But we need to move in order to stop these conflicts. And to be honest with you, even I'm not sure I will reach peace in my lifetime. Yeah? But if this will not happen in my lifetime, And my grandchildren ask me in the future what you have done when your people were killing each other for history stories. I will say, I tried to plant peace and make change. Thank you.
So I will answer the second and then, okay. So first, the society in Israel is divided into many different subgroups. And in each subgroup, the children are being educated differently. I wasn't educated to hate Palestinians. They were just not exist. Nobody talked about them. Okay? I was told that maybe I shouldn't go there, maybe they are those who are behind these attacks, they are dangerous, but there was no pure hate towards Palestinians, at least in my school, in my village. In the West Bank, in the settlements, it's different. Again, not from a personal experience, but from what I hear, there is education to hate. And I think this thing happens because they feel first that for some reason the existence of the Palestinians is endangering them, and as long as there is this nationality exists on the land, they will not be safe, and this is why their narrative is also one that denies the existence of the Palestinians. So again, you have different subgroups. Not everyone denies the existence of Palestinians inside Israel. The more extreme ones, yeah, they deny and they educate their children to hate Palestinians, and it's a very big problem. And you can see all the terror attacks by Jewish settlers towards Palestinians. It's mostly people who were grown up in the West Bank, in like radical settlements in the West Bank, or people who were on the edge of society. They come from poor families, and somehow they are being attracted to these settlements, to these places, where people offer them some kind of belonging. Okay, there suddenly they feel that they are part of a bigger thing. Okay, and they even tell them that they protect the land, they protect their people. So again, it's very complicated. There are many like subgroups. The fact is that this education and this radical part of the society is getting bigger and bigger with the years. Now they control the government. So you have people who are called terrorists by the Israeli system. They are now ministers in the government, and they are those who actually control the country. Okay, so the situation is completely different, and this is how, like, you see a society which, again, I can't say that it was a democratic society even like 40 years ago, because there were always half of the people who live on this land weren't part of the system. Palestinians were never part of the system, and once you don't give to half of the population rights, you cannot call yourself a democracy. But what we see on the land now is not just that it's not a democracy, we see the fascization of the society. Okay? It wasn't like 20 and 30 and 40 years ago. It was in like much lighter. And now you see ministers in the government, they just call for ethnic cleansing openly. That the solution is to clean Gaza completely. And these kind of solutions, it's fascist solutions, of course, and it's very dangerous, and we are getting closer to a very scary moment in the history of this land, actually, if we will not manage to take a new direction.
Yeah. So if I remember the third question, like, how did we decide to break this system? Yeah. I think I said that because we meet, but we didn't meet as most of the Palestinians and the Israelis meet. You can see on the gas stations, you can find a lot of Palestinians workers for Israelis in the farm, in the factories, everywhere without any rights. They meet this way. He's the boss and he's the slave. But the way we met equal. And we acknowledge the existence of each other and the right of each other. And we stopped fighting each other. We understood that the occupation is our enemy, and to reach better place, we need to fight together against this occupation because it's endangering everyone. It's to understand and accept, again, but it's by understanding and accepting the narrative of each other. Not because I want to surrender like now. I don't think anyone have the right to come back after 2,000 years old to a country and destroy it and kill and rape and kill everyone there in order to build country, and 6 months after the international community recognize it, I don't accept this. But I don't want to stuck in this, the egg and the chicken game. Yeah, we know the past. We all know the past. But now we are fighting for the future. Stucking in the past will not give us anything. There are 2 or 3 generations of the people who came from Europe. Yeah, they were born and raised on that land with me. And for them, for Rotem, he speaks the language of the country. He doesn't have another homeland. And now telling him, I want to kick you out back to Poland, or I don't know where, because I want to bring my cousin from America to live in your place, this is not different than what he did before. And this will not solve anything. You can't solve a catastrophe by creating another catastrophe. And that's all I really thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your talk. It was great. I listened a second time. First I listened it on a few years ago, or 1 year ago, probably. No, sorry, not one, half a year. So yeah, it was online, and I know that it's very difficult to be a peacemaker. Well, how I see your kind of initiative. I don't know how you define yourself, but for me it's a peacemaking. And I have then 2 questions. And first, how difficult to be a peacemaker in Israel or in Palestine, how you could talk with people there, who would listen you there. And yeah. And the second question about the Germany, how you see the role of Germany in this conflict, and what we can do here if we want to stop this war in Gaza. Thank you.
I think my English is not good enough, but I would like to ask, what... Is it my turn? Merhaba. No, what my question is, what you expect us in Germany to do. One question, what would you as Palestine recommend us, and what would you, Rotem, as Israeli recommend us? Because I noticed that many Palestinians here in Germany are demonstrating very loudly, and I can understand why they do that, but to my view, it would be better to do what you two do, to look for companions on the other side, and as well in Germany, to go together, the Jewish people and the Muslim people from Palestine, so to form junctions and to present in the public. But this is only my, my dream as a German who cannot advise anything because I'm out of it. I'm just listening. I hear you two for the second time in my life, and I'm still impressed. That's the reason why I came the second time. But what would you advise us here in Germany?
Yeah. First, I have two questions. So first, I think it's very interesting the way you guys show the segregation through your personal stories. I think that the most interesting part I found when Rotem said that by learning the language, you learned that people weren't planned to attack, but they wanted to eat. I can imagine that this interesting moment to listen for the first time that the person is a human. And that Osama also said that when you were angry with your friend because he was talking with Israeli Jews and you were thinking about what is this guy doing, it's crazy, it's dangerous, and you learned also there first that they were talk about human things, about things that it was also for your interesting. And I think that this journey of equality or understanding equality, that's how I understand what Osama said in the answer of the question, that the thing that unite you guys and the difference between you two and other Palestinian Israelis is that you guys learned equality. From this point of view, I had first the question, if you guys live equal, that's how I understand, how from this point of view you guys understand your difference, because I think that first, as we see with each other equal, we can understand our positive difference. And I think that's where it starts, actually, the beautiness in human being. And my second question is, seeing this difference between you two guys and also between your comrades or friends, seeing that you guys are different people, how do you guys come to a common sense?
So first I want to make it clear, we are not equal on the land. Okay, we are not equal. I am Jewish Israeli, I have all the privileges, the system works for me. Okay? Palestinians are divided to 5 different groups to control them. Each group gets different rights. Okay? You have the Israeli citizens, Palestinians, they get the more rights. They are not equal to me. Later I can explain a bit more about the differences. They are citizens, but they are not really equal. This is the highest level of Palestinians. Then you have the Palestinians from Jerusalem. They have residency, they don't have citizenship. It means that they cannot vote for the parliament. And if they leave Jerusalem for more than 3 years, they can be kicked out and they will not be able to come back, like the family of Osama. And then you have the Palestinians who live in the West Bank, like Osama. He is not a citizen, he doesn't have a residency, he lives under military rule, he can drive in only 10% of the land, he cannot use the airport, he cannot import, he cannot export. He has to go, if he wants to travel to Jordan, he has to ask for a permit from the Israelis. So we are not equal in any way, okay? But we recognize our common nature and that both of us are human beings and both of us were put in these places where I have to play the aggressor and he has to play the victim. By our societies, we don't choose it even. You are being born into this thing. And as long as I have to play this role and he has to be the victim, both of us are not liberated. Okay? Mentally. The Israelis might be privileged, but they are not free. And this is very clear because when you live in fear, you are not free. Many times, actually, I feel like that the Palestinians are much more free than the Israelis. They are not privileged like the Israelis, but they are free here. Okay? And to live in fear is maybe the most disastrous thing you can experience. So, we realized that both of us didn't choose to be aggressors and victims. We were born into these roles. And we realized not to play this game. We chose not to play this game. We chose to free ourselves. I freed myself from the fear by connecting to the other side, by crossing the wall, by getting to know my neighbors. And Osama decided not to be a victim anymore, not to play this role that was given to him, but to challenge it. And this is where we meet. But we are still not equal. And this is why we are here. We are here because we want to tell you the problem is there is no equality on the land. And as long as there is no equality, there will be resistance. And some will resist like us. Okay, they will come here to talk to you and to challenge the narrative. But others who might, I don't know, be more hurt. Maybe they lost family members. Maybe they lost everything. Maybe they lost all their family. Maybe they are alone in the world. They will choose violence because they can't see any alternative for the violence. Okay, so the problem is that there is no equality, is that some gets everything, some don't, but none is free. Okay, or even the Israelis, they are not free. They are in cages of fear. Okay, you cannot be free as long as you are so afraid from human beings at the end of the day. And you dehumanize them to legitimate your actions.
The question was, I think, people listen to you, something? Yeah. How we work as, first of all, our organization is one of the only democracies in the Middle East. It's the only place where democracy happened equally between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Yeah. So Palestinians can vote and choose their leadership, and it is the same. We both agree in a few things. Violence is not the way. We are against the occupation. We think the occupation is the problem. And we both recognize the existence and the right of the other side and their narrative. We don't agree in a lot of things, but we still understand what is the difference between anger and hate. So we can sit angry and talk and agree to disagree sometimes. So that's how the negotiation happened. Anything on the Israeli side, there is Israeli CO, Palestinian CO, Israeli generalist, Palestinian journalist, Israeli group manager, Palestinian, everything is equal, and everyone chooses his own management or the people who work with him, and any actions happen should be against occupation, and anyone take any part of violence is not part of us anymore. For example, I will give you an example. In the last 10 years, I am in these peace organizations, and in the last 10 years, maybe 5 wars or even more happened in Gaza. Around 13,000 people were killed before 7th of October, and they mostly were kids. I know we forgot about them, but I'm reminding you. During this time, I always have, my Israeli friends coming to me say, yeah, sorry, we know that it's big, it's suffering, it's bad, it's whatever, but we need to commit to peace and we need to commit to nonviolent resistance, and I always agree. After 7th of October, suddenly some of these people went to the army because when their own privilege was touched, they don't want to continue the same way. They don't want to teach me nonviolence communication anymore. Yeah? So this kind of people are out of our circles. No one can work against what we believe. We believe in doing small activities on the ground to help people to survive and making big pressure on the international community and on our governments to end the occupation. We don't have a magic solution, but we are calling for equality and justice for everyone. If it's allowed to say, from the river to the sea, everyone should be equal and free. What is my advice to the Germans? My advice to Germans, 2 sentences. Reread the history again because it sounds like you forget it, and reread what is the meaning of never again. Thank you. And the other one is read or understand the meaning of never again. Thank you. I said my advice to the Germans, I'm sorry, is to reread the history again because it sounds like you did not learn anything from history. The second thing, you have to understand what is the meaning of never again. If it's for everyone or it's for certain kind of people. Thank you.
And one more advice for the Germans. I have many, but I will choose one. I think it's very clear that you are very scared that the Jews will not be safe, but this is not the way to protect the Jews. This is not the way to protect the Israelis. Actually, the weapons you send us make us more in danger. And when you send weapons to someone who is traumatized and who is feeling that he might be eliminated actually soon, even after 7th of October it became that intense among the Israelis. When you send us bombs, we will use them. So we need a good friend to tell us, stop, this is not the way to peace. And these bombs, we will use them. Because again, people are scared, people are traumatized. We need someone to tell us, stop, you need to recalculate. Okay, so please stop sending weapons.
So, hello. Thank you for coming. It's great to hear your stories, and it gives us way more hope than we usually see for an end to this conflict, to see an Israeli and a Palestine sit together. That's very inspiring. My question, if I see what shocked me the most, I think, in this recent eruption in violence, beginning last year, was that what we also saw were, I don't believe those were the average people who had a certain joy in cruelty, so that people who became so fanatic they actually had bloodthirst, that for them this conflict became a religion, and they actually believe it's their obligation to continue this war. I think if I had to name the greatest obstacle to peace, it would be those groups. What would be your hope in turning those people, or at least removing them from the ability to cause harm?
Ja, ich mache mal auf Deutsch weiter. Erst einmal vielen, vielen Dank für die sehr bildhafte Darstellung. Okay, noch langsamer. Vielen Dank für die sehr bildhafte Darstellung. Ich konnte mir die Situation im Biss vorstellen, wie du dich als Kind gefühlt hast. Man hat das richtig mitgespürt. Und man konnte auch die Situation, wie du über das Feld gelaufen bist und die Zwiebel in der Hand hattest, die konnte man auch extrem intensiv mitspüren. Meine Frage, es wurde einmal gesagt für die Deutschen, bitte liest die Geschichte nochmal und never is never again. Never again is never again. Und meine Frage ist für diese ganzen kleinen Männer und Frauen, Handlungsschritte für den Alltag, was können wir mitnehmen, was können wir konkret umsetzen, um das Ganze zu unterstützen?
Thank you for being here. My first question is there any recording for a previous meeting? Because actually I like to send it to people who are not here and who haven't had the time or the space to come here, but I think it's very good to give hope around that Jews and Palestinians meet on equal terms and talk for peace. So it would be good to have a recording to send further. Second question is to what a woman previously said and the other woman said also. Is there, the woman with that reddish hair said, in your view, does it make sense to have lots of more demonstrations, or does it make sense to have like information tables on shopping malls or something, or to go to schools? So what is your idea, like what the woman in the scarf said, like in all day, what like real day doings could be done for the people here to carry a home and to have to spread the hope? And the third thing is, you said, yeah, never again, and don't send us weapons. I think lots of people here don't want the politicians to send us weapons. I mean, lots of Germans don't want the politicians to send weapons. There's a big peace movement, and it's not about the Germans, because the politicians decide not what the Germans want.
So, first of all, there are recordings. I have on my Instagram few, and every second event, the last week, they took recordings, so we can change later, I will send you. And we will have like 4 weeks now of events every day, so you can also send people to other places. What is beneficial, or what we think can help? I think everything can help. And it's not about us to tell you what you should do, it's about you to feel what do you believe in, where you feel most aligned, and what is your mission, or what is your instinct. And I think demonstrations are amazing for those who feel like going to demonstrations. These kind of things you can do. Like you can go and close weapon factories. You can go to schools, you can talk to children, you can make mixed group of Israelis and Palestinians who live in Hamburg and create some understandings and then send them to schools to speak together with the children. You can, many things. But each of us should ask himself where he is aligned and where he feel that he actually, what is he passionate about. And once we have a critical mass of activities and we reach a lot of people, we will see the change. But it's not that there is only 1 or 2 things that are effective. It's all effective. We need to do everything simultaneously.
I want to answer the same, like what we can do. I think a lot of things we can do if our intention is to save human beings. If we really understand that there is around 20,000 children were slaughtered and buried and killed, either on this side or this side, if we really understand, we really can make change. How can we make change? I don't know. You said most of the Germans don't want to send weapons, but the government want. Imagine all these people who don't want Germany to send weapons stop going to work until Germany stop sending weapons. This will make change or not? For example, the other thing is about what else we can do than reading history. No, I'm not asking you to read history. I know you read the history. I'm asking you to reread it again because it sounds like we don't understand sometimes from history. They keep educating us how many people were killed during the Holocaust, which is good and amazing and it's experience. But they never teach us how many Germans were silent while the Holocaust was happening, and that's why the Holocaust happening. Yeah. That's what I mean, understand the history, that you can't stand up against genocide while you're supporting another one, or whatever. It's not time to keep discuss it's genocide or apartheid or whatever. I don't care about the philosophic names of the educated universities. I care about people's lives. I don't mind what title you give the death of my children. I lost them. You can call it whatever you want because you are sitting in your privileged, comfortable sofa. But for me, every single movement is saving my life and my children's life and other people's lives. And it's saving your money too. Thank you.
Well, first, thank you so much for bringing a hope, like at least there is a peace solution for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Also, I would say like violence would never bring peace. Violence is, whereas there is a violence, there is always violence, and this is what we see in Gaza. Taking the current situation, the current war on Gaza, thousands of people have been killed. Many people have been displaced multiple times, and of course there is a mass destruction in the Gaza Strip. Also, taking into consideration that in the last decade there is a clear rise of the Islamist movements like Hamas and the Islamic Jihad in Palestine, and the most extremist right-wing parties in Israel. And of course, the two-state solution for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is almost dead, or is not. There's nothing there to be called the two-state solution. From your point of view, how do you see the one-state solution is still viable, is still practical, taking into consideration the rise of the extremist movements in both sides? Thank you.
Yeah, hello, and thank you too. I think we have learned much about how hate is being created, and also about education and not education, and also about that not existing of a people is also a kind of violence. And we have also seen how important such initiatives like this peace meeting and like this dialogue seminar are to learn more about what is really happening. My question is, Rotem, you told about how difficult it was to talk about these new experiences in their own population or with their own people. What are the main prejudices, also Vorurteile, was sind die Hauptvorurteile, on both sides about the others, which you have to discuss and overcome to make peace being a bigger movement on both sides. And to the German discussion, I just want to say, I think we have to be much more loud against these German, wie heißt dann das, Staatsräson, which is only based upon violence and weapons and not trying to be a peace politics. So I think it's very important to see these initiatives, but we here have to be much louder and clearer about this politics here.
Thank you so much. It's very important. My question is very specific because today in Tel Aviv there is a big conference. Maybe you know it's Times the Great Peace Conference. It's just today, so I couldn't follow it. But my question is about your estimation, how right now that people's opinion or mood or support of that kind of initiative on both sides. How it's the difference, for example, if you look from Palestinian side and you can maybe reach bigger community or fewer community, and for Israeli side, because I'm from Russia, I will see how that, what you mentioned, fascist mobilization working so well through the act of violence and terrorism. So it's really very sad situation. So, yeah. Thank you.
There was a question here. Did you ask a question?
Sorry. The question was also how you feel that potentiality of support of that joint peace movement in your communities from both sides, something like that, yeah. Because we have some very weird statistical polls, but it doesn't tell much, yeah.
So one-state solution. First, on a more philosophic, I think states are human-made, right? There was no states a few hundred years ago, and I believe in a few hundred years there will be no states. This is my idea. Now, I think at some point we will reach this reality of one-state solution. Even if there will be a solution of two states, it's not sustainable. Like you mentioned, first, separation walls cannot stay forever. It doesn't give security, real security. Separation, as we mentioned, we have to get to know the other side, we have to integrate the Israeli society into the region so they will be safe. As long as they live in cages, security cages, they will never be safe. So I don't believe in this two-state solution, first because of this reason, and second because if you want to create a Palestinian state in the West Bank, you have to expel 700,000 settlers, and this will cause a civil war, a very bloody one. Okay, and I don't believe that Israel has the ability to even force it. Because right now, most of the army, or a big part of the army, is controlled by the settlers, and they will not come and evacuate their own families from the villages. It's not practical. It will just cause a civil war. And of course, we don't want to establish a Palestinian state of enclaves because it will not give them liberation. It will not be real freedom. They will not have real equality. Now, what's the way to move forward? I don't know. There are many ways. But for sure, if we want a lasting peace, we need full equality, full liberation, and segregation cannot create this scenario. If my society is ready for a one-state solution, of course not. Of course not. We are not there. which is very sad and painful, and like to imagine it happening, it's super difficult. Super difficult, and this is why, yeah, it's amazing that we are making this peace conference. It's a beautiful initiative, and I think it will be quite big today, actually, because there is a shift happening now since the 7th of October. Now people are very much like tired and frustrated, and they don't want to, many don't feel like this war is giving them security or bring the hostages back or anything. But if these people that will attend the conference today, can they imagine a one-state solution? The majority cannot. And they are those who attend the peace conference. So we have a lot of way to go before we reach this day. But it does give me hope to see this conference and to know that people are tired of the war, but they are still in this mindset of the Jewish state somehow guaranteed them security, which, from my opinion, is the opposite. And the Jewish state was supposed to be the safe haven for the Jews after the Holocaust, but now Israel is the most dangerous place for Jews all over the world. So it definitely didn't accomplish what it was established to do. And yeah, we have a lot of way to go. We have a lot of education, a lot of work to do. But yeah, one day I believe one-state solution is the only solution on the long run. They might decide to do two states, but at some point it's not sustainable. You have to integrate the Israeli society to the region. It cannot stay in this bubble. It's not secured.
So I will answer the two-state solution a little bit. So actually, first of all, I want to make it clear that I don't fight for one side. I want everyone. I'm saying the truth here. I'm bringing the truth not because I am the right one, I'm the victim, but because this is what's going on the ground. But we actually are fighting for both sides. The two-state solution was opportunity, actually, big opportunity for Israel to be a democracy for the first time in their life. What I mean by democracy is to create their own country in 80% of Palestine with Jewish majority, and only 2 million Palestinians, where they can practice democracy and live. And West Bank will be a place for Palestinians. They can practice their democracy without affecting the Israeli country. But now Israel allowed 600,000 settlers to come to West Bank after Oslo Agreement. That left Israel in front of three options. First, to take the settlers out, and this will cause civil war because the settlers are the power. Second is to be a democratic state, which is giving all the Palestinians rights, and in 10 years we will be the majority and they will lose the idea of the Jewish state. The third option, and that what Israel is doing now, is to be an apartheid state in West Bank. And that's what they are doing, unfortunately, and that's what giving them this image. Because living in the same place, when two human beings are living on the same space, even in Hebron, in the same building, I'm talking about out of Hebron, the same space, 5 meters from each other, have different rights according to their race and their religion. This is an apartheid. Apartheid shouldn't be black and white only. It's not black and white. It's a human right. And where people don't share human rights, and that's what Israel is choosing right now. What is the next solution? We don't know. There is a lot of solutions. I can give you now 5 solutions that could work. And this is not the problem. The problem, for example, will Germans do any punishment against Israel if Israel don't commit to the solutions, to the international law. Yeah. Israel violated the international law 135 times in the last few years. Do you know that? Where is the international law? The veto was used 68 times to prevent Israel from international community decisions, not Hamas attacks. You see, that's the problem. It's not what is the solution. How many countries will make pressure on both sides to commit to the solution? Because that's what happened in South Africa. And if there is no international pressure, there is no change. And when someone feels he or she have the power and the support from the international community and the weapons, why would they share? Why would they change? So that's what really making us stuck in here and not reaching any solution. For me, there is no solution. The only solution for Israelis to be safe, Palestinians should be free. And the only solution for Palestinians to be free, Israelis should be safe. Thank you.
Thank you for coming to our university. I think we need more events that shed light on the so-called conflict. And I believe that the right of return is essential for a just solution. Many Palestinians displaced during the Nakba still carry their keys with them. Both of you know that. And at the same time, over 180 destroyed Palestinian villages have been turned into national parks and forests by the Jewish National Fund. What do you think about it?
I lived in Al-Khalil in Hebron. I worked there for several years, and on our wall we had the following saying: darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. From Martin Luther King. I'd like to ask you both, where do you get your light from?
Yeah, I think that first to the question that I think some people asked and a lot of people have in mind, what can we do here to change the situation there? I always thought, and I think that maybe Rotem and Osama would agree with me, that you fight where you are. I think that most important part of what they said is that the story that they told is that they organized themselves. And this wasn't like a paradise. It was actually very hard. I think my question in this sense, I think the question that the sir said, what is your light, actually very interesting, because I think that the perspective is very important, and also the concrete perspective, what is your strategy, let's say, I think that's very interesting. And the second question, because of organizing, when you say, Rotem, there's every act that goes in the orientation of peace is good and everything should do to achieve it, why do you think that people don't do it? Because I think that's a very personal question. I can say this event is being done from engaged people, from engaged students, and from students that also engage in Fachschaftsrat, Fachbereichsrat, and in other democratic ways in our university to achieve things. And I think that students has an important role in this peace movement. I agree that every act for peace is good, but I think that students have more possibilities to achieve it in another level, because universities can do science for peace and university can do science for the army. So that makes a difference. And that's why also my third question, I made the first two. My third question would be, how do you guys see the role of university and students in this fight?
So we answer and then you will ask another one. So first, the universities. The situation in the universities in Israel is very bad. Freedom of speech does not really exist. Professors are being kicked from the universities just for challenging Zionism. And now they are trying to make a new law in the parliament to constrict the freedom of speech of the lecturers. My girlfriend, she studies in Tel Aviv University, and she feels like there is no open space to discuss anything that is outside of the Zionist narrative. Okay, so you can challenge the narrative only until you reach Zionism, then it's not allowed to talk about it. About Haq el-Awda, the right of return. So first, if we, the Jews, go back to our historical homeland, because 2,000 years ago, we used to live there, I don't understand how come we don't let the same right to the Palestinians who were kicked only 75 years ago from their homeland. Now, the question is how we implement this. Because as I've mentioned, the land is segregated, people are scared, they live in fear, and Israelis believe that the right of return means that they will be kicked to the sea. Okay, and it's very difficult to challenge this belief. Now, like Osama mentioned, I think no one should be kicked from his home, because if you want to solve a catastrophe by creating a new one, you just feed the circle of violence and the victims, and then the victim become the new perpetrator, and we will not go forward. So, yes, right of return is justice, and this should happen, but our language, how we work towards this direction is very important. If we want to be effective, if we want to just bring more separation and to feed the narrative of Israel, which is they all hate us, they will kick us to the sea, we can go and shout about justice and national flags and resistance, Hamas, everything. But this will not be effective. They will just feel more scared, and they will buy more weapons and more airplanes and more bombs because they feel everyone is against them. So we can be more smart, a bit more smart, and to challenge them and to create a crack in the narrative. Okay, and this is the more difficult way, actually. Because the easiest thing is to just go to the demonstration and to shout, I am the right one, they are all perpetrators. Which might be true, but does it helpful? Does it bring us closer to the right of return? I don't know. I'm not sure. I think we should be more creative in our resistance and to remind ourselves that we are all human beings, okay? We are all victims of our narratives, okay? And we should get out of this loop and try to think together and come together and to challenge the system together. Because as long as we are separated, it just shows them that two sides are fighting here. We are not two sides. We are one side, and we fight for everyone. Okay? For all the people who feel that this is their homeland to come back, and that all the people who live there and want to stay there, they can stay and live freely and equally. Thank you.
Answer this question. So I want to answer Those two questions about the right of return. I think I will blame Palestinians a little bit. I think sometimes you don't understand what we are talking about, guys. Because when I say equality and justice for everyone, it means you can go back same like his cousin's back. This is equality and justice and democracy. It's obvious. We don't need to stuck, we Palestinians all the time, when I'm giving talk, Palestinians especially, they keep me in, we are allowed to use violence. We are not allowed to use violence. We need the right of return. No, guys, can you ask me how we can change the daily situation of our people on the ground? Because people are suffering every day. We are slaughtered every day and we are stuck in if we have حق العودة or not. We should think out of this box and not stuck to the old ideas, because it's easy for them to keep you fighting over حق العودة while West Bank is taken. And you keep fighting over حق العودة. No one will remove someone else. And when there is equality and justice, everyone will have the right. Same like the Jewish in America have the right to come to the homeland, every Palestinian in the world have the right to come back home, but without kicking anyone out of his house. Thank you. Where we reach hope or light. To be honest with you, I am a little hippie, so for me, moon and stars and nature gives me a lot of hope. But also seeing human beings leaving their work, and yesterday the football game of Germany, and coming to listen to my talk, that gives me a lot of hope and keep me going. Yeah, and this is the light we receive. Thank you.
Okay, maybe my question to you would be, what is the most important aspect of your work that is maybe already practicing how a free society, a liberated society would look like? But maybe you can take this question, or we can find another way to discuss it, because we should be short. But I do want to say to the inner German debate that I think it's a bit curious to ask for advice, what can we do in our everyday life? Because I think it's quite obvious that it's not functioning to say, just this particular one war hurts me, so we need to stop sending arms, if we are in the same in other wars. Like we have the same image of Russians as is portrayed in Israel and Palestine to the other sides. So I think that with a lot better situation, like we also have to resist here in a similar way, which doesn't mean that we have to face like checkpoints or all this, but we do have to resist to this sort of producing enemies and like making a war household to the budget that we have. And I would recommend like Erich Fried, an Austrian anti-fascist. After the Six-Day War, he published a cycle of poets under the title Shema Israel. And in one of those poems, he describes also the army of Israel as mercenaries to the interests of US or Western countries and their industries. And I think that we should take this more personally, that it's not just one war in the world, which has been fought there, but it has something to do with us. Also, I thought that the advice to break down the arms industry is quite good, and we should probably get organized in order to do this here.
Thank you for the talk. I just wanted to add something. It's not a question, it's a little comment. Because of the right of the return, I'm an Israeli, I'm not a Palestinian, but I have the feeling, following Edward Said, in 1994, he said, one of the main problems in this so-called conflict is that there has never been any leader from the Israeli side who came up and said, "Dear Palestinians, we acknowledge what we've done to you back then in 48. We acknowledge the Nakba, we acknowledge whatever happened since the Nakba." And I, as someone who is a Holocaust third generation of survivors, I really thought if anybody would ever tell me, yeah, your 4 grandparents may or may not have been through the Holocaust, so I'm not sure about it, I would be very furious, because nobody is allowed to deny the Holocaust. But I have the feeling that it's quite a lot of people in the world are completely denying the Nakba and whatever happened to the Palestinians in 48. And maybe that's where the right of return keeps coming back, is a reminder to say, let's first of all acknowledge the atrocities that happened back there. Let's not erase this, because it does explain a lot of the problem later. So that's just a comment, I think.
First of all, thank you both for speaking your stories. I really appreciate it. I know how hard but also heartfelt it is, so thank you so much for telling us this. I myself, I'm from Lebanon, and we're kind of like the third party of this situation. We also have a wall with you, and we also lived many wars with Israel ourselves. We also have Palestinian refugees who are in Lebanon who don't have rights, who don't have papers. So I feel like I'm in and outside of the conflict in a very different way and with so many wounds. Also within our countries, we are not allowed to talk to each other. So if I wasn't in Germany, I wouldn't be able to listen to you or to meet you, even Palestinians who are born in Palestine or Israelis who are there. And I got the chance to meet Hadas just months ago, which was also a shock for me, speaking to an Israeli for the first time, saying, like, oh, or listening to her speak Hebrew or seeing her writing brings back trauma from the war that I lived. So I've had the same aha moments as you, that only us here can create peace together. And then comes my question, what do you need from us? How can we help you? And one more remark for Germans, I think it's very important for you to give us a platform, because in our countries we're not allowed to do this, we're not allowed to talk. So thank you for providing this platform, and please make more of it. Just that.
So I just want to add something to the Nakba has never finished. It is an ongoing process. Palestinians are suffering from ethnic cleansing since 1948 until today. Now the situation in Gaza is that 85% of the population were expelled from their homes, and they don't have homes to go back to. So like the Nakba of 1948, we will have consequences of this horrible situation that is going on in Gaza for dozens and maybe I don't know how many years. Okay, just to realize what is coming also, because the situation is horrible. I want to tell you, what's your name? Just keep doing what you do. I feel like you do the right thing. If you sit next to Hadas, I'm convinced. So yeah, just this. I want to tell you that there is a QR scan on the door. You can scan it and you will be added to the newsletter of Combatants for Peace, and then you will be updated about activities and things. And this tour was organized by us, and we speak in the name of Combatants for Peace, but they couldn't fund it. They don't have the money. So we had to buy the flight tickets and everything. So we will appreciate if you can help us to cover the expenses. And this is all on my side.
Thank you. That's how Israelis, they always deal with money. I just want to say, really, in the end of this conversation, thank you. Thank you for coming, for asking, for triggering us, and for listening to our triggers. Thank you for agreeing or not agreeing with us. And this is the way, if you agree or not agree, as we say always, connection before correction. Sit, talk, find a common way to fight for each other goals instead of keep fighting each other to reach our goals. And I want to say, after all this, as a Palestinian, I'm not speaking as a victim. I refuse to be a victim, and I will never be a victim. And I will keep fighting for my rights. And I want to remind you that if you have come here to stand for me, you are losing your time, wasting your time. But if you are here because you know that your liberation and your freedom as a human being is bound up with mine, we have a lot to do. Thank you.
So thank you very much for having you here. We hope that we can continue this discussion another time, perhaps, because what we have to change is a little bit bigger, I think. Yeah, and now I change into German for 2 or 3 things. Ja, vielen Dank, dass ihr alle da gewesen seid. Es gab vorhin noch die Frage, ob es eine Aufzeichnung gibt. Die gibt es. Die kann man auf der Seite vom Referat für internationale Studierende abrufen demnächst und dann auch mit anderen teilen, damit das, was hier dargelegt und diskutiert wurde, auch noch mehr Leute erreicht. Ich möchte abschließend noch mal darauf hinweisen, dass, was ja auch schon mehrfach angeklungen ist, die Frage von Krieg und Frieden weltweit auch an den Hochschulen mitentschieden wird und das also auch eine Frage, die sehr konkret gestellt ist, ob Forschung und Lehre zivil orientiert sein sollen oder enger an militärische Zwecke angebunden sein sollen, die wir jetzt aktuell diskutieren müssen, in den Hochschulgremien auch, weshalb alle Leute, die Studierende sind, aufgerufen sind, entsprechend sich zu informieren und bis zum 8. Juli dafür zu sorgen, dass ihre Wahlunterlagen zu den Fakultätsräten auch beim Wahlamt ankommen und dass dort, wo kritische Studierende kandidieren, diese auch gewählt werden, denn nur das ist eine Stimme dafür, ja, den Krieg zu verweigern und den Frieden mit zu befördern.
Ich würde noch gerne auf eine Veranstaltung hinweisen mit Rotem und Osama, die am nächsten Dienstag um 19 Uhr vor der Leishalle stattfinden wird, sozusagen Open Air. Organisiert von der interventionistischen Linken hier in Hamburg wird es nochmal eine Veranstaltung geben mit Rotem und Osama um 19 Uhr.